Wow. Right. I got sunburned yesterday. I went to the park and was hanging out with a friend, and we were only there like 40 minutes. We went at like 11 o'clock in the morning, so I didn't think I would get burnt that bad. And I had a moisturizer thing on my face that has, well, when I looked at it today, it had like an SPF 20. So I guess that's why my face isn't that bad, and you can kind of see that I'm a bit more burnt there. But this bit is really, really annoying me now because if I sleep on the pillow that side, this still hurts, and then if I sleep that side, ow, that hurts. But yeah, you can see. Oh, bitch, bitch. So yeah, don't worry. I'm not having a heart attack. I'm just a bit sunburnt, and I'm really greasy because I've been putting a shitload of after sun on. Yeah, but anyway, white people problems aside, I've been wanting to come in and talk about this 100 Years of Solitude. I have my cup of tea in my Ursula mug, and I also have squash in this, which is like had some ice in it because I'm quite hot. So, this is the second Marquez I've read. The first book I read was Love in a Time of Cholera, and I'm really glad that I did read Love in a Time of Cholera first because that book is like realism, whereas this is magical realism, and I would have felt a bit possibly put off by Marquez if I'd read this first. But I also want to read My Melancholy Horse by him. I don't know anything about it, but just from the title, I'm like, I want to read that. So far, I'm really, really enjoying him as a writer. Love in a Time of Cholera I liked because it was just interesting following it and seeing where it was going to go. And it ended in a really romantic way that was nuanced and that you don't really see in romantic fiction that much. So, yes, I really liked Love in a Time of Cholera. And I did really enjoy this as well. And this was kind of my first foray into magical realism, really. Like, I've read magical realist short stories and I've read The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Murakami. But yeah, apart from that, I haven't read much else that's magical realist. And this is like the magical realist book, so I was really excited for it. When I was reading it, I was really enjoying it. I just enjoy his prose. Now it would be seen kind of more as telling rather than showing, but his prose has a kind of antiquarian sheen to it that is just a pleasure to read. When there is dialogue, the dialogue is really good and like the sentence is used to effect. So that's why the lack of dialogue doesn't bother me that much. What did I like about the book? I liked that I was kind of never sure where it was going to go. So even though at the start you get the like family tree of the family history, because they all have similar names, like Jose Arcadio, another Jose Arcadio, another Jose Arcadio, Aureliano, and then he has another child called Aureliano, and then he has 17 other kids called Aureliano. It follows them over the generations, but because they all have really, really similar names, it has a kind of timeless quality to it. With a novel like this, it does compel you to indulge it a little bit and suspend your belief. I think because the prose is there, it kind of casts a spell on you, and you feel like, okay, I'm not quite sure what's going on here, Marquez, but I'm going to put faith in you and I'm going to accept it. It does seem to follow its own strange logic. The novel does have like certain mechanics that mean this character like Remedios, is it, this beautiful spinster, I suppose, and there's one scene where she's in her bedroom and then she just like gets lifted up with the bed sheets and floats out of the room, I guess dissolving into the ether and ascending to heaven or whatever you want to read that as. If you just picked this book out of nowhere and was reading that, you'd be like, okay, don't really understand why or how that's happening. But when you read this, it has a dreamlike quality that flows over you. So he gets away with it. And I think what helps him cast the spell is that the book is set over like the same place for the most part. So the same way that in Wuthering Heights, it all centers around that house. In this, it centers around the town they found. So at the start, it opens with, I guess, the first Jose Arcadio going through the mountains like for hours and hours and hours and days and weeks and years and years and years. And then they found this town, and then this like gypsy man comes and he has this thing called, is it a daguerreotype? That's what they call it, and it's this kind of machine. The novel doesn't really explain the machine completely, but you get the sense that it's this antiquarian daguerreotype device that seems to be able to morph reality in some way, and as long as this machine is like whirring in the background or something, it's allowing all this stuff to take place. There's this kind of force driving these things. I think that's also why I could accept the more fantastical element of the book. The only thing that I found a bit frustrating was that their names were so similar, but the more you read it, the more you get the sense that its time just functions slightly differently in the town that they found. Say you found a village, you'd say, you know, stamped 1812, we founded this village, but that village, you name that place, and straight away, that village has a kind of like white chalk circle around it in your mind, and you associate this area is that place. Even though time is always happening everywhere, we move through time, and you get the sense that even though, you know, everywhere in the UK has the same time zone, London time might feel completely different to Manchester time, or time, you know, in some Scottish mountain, the time might feel totally different. So you get the sense that there is a realism behind the supernaturalism, if that makes sense. Not sure how much sense I'm making. I'm sure when I reread it, I'll pick up lots of other things, and I'll probably watch this video back and be like, Ed, that's not what it is. But at the moment, from my first reading, that's the vibes I got. What else did I like about the book? So, I also liked how sexual it was. One of the characters, is it Jose Arcadio? He gets really muscly and buff, and he leaves like the town, and he becomes this kind of swashbuckling sailor with a, you know, a sketchy past. And then he comes back to the town, and they're all like, "Oh my god, he's so fit." There's one scene where he is having sex with his stepsister or something like that, and so let me read you this bit. One afternoon, when everyone was having a siesta, she could no longer resist and went to his bedroom. She found him in his shorts, lying in the hammock that he had hung from the beams with a ship's hawser. She was so impressed by his enormous motley nakedness that she felt an impulse to retreat. "Excuse me," she said. "I didn't know you were here." But she lowered her voice so as not to wake anyone up. "Come here," he said. Rebecca obeyed. She stopped beside the hammock in an icy sweat, feeling knots forming in her intestines, while Jose Arcadio stroked her ankles with the tips of his fingers, then her calves, then her thighs, murmuring, "Oh, little sister, little sister." She had to make a supernatural effort not to die when a startlingly regulated cyclonic power lifted her up by the waist and despoiled her of her intimacy with 3 slashes of its claws and quartered her like a little bird. She managed to thank God for having been born before she lost herself in the inconceivable pleasure of that unbearable pain, splashing in a steaming marsh of the hammock which absorbed the explosion of blood like a blotter. 3 days later they were married. Disgusting! It's really, really sexual, and it's very emotionally invested in its characters. Have you read any Gabriel Garcia Marquez? Do you like him? Have you read this book by him? And have you read My Melancholy Horse? Or what other books from him would you recommend? Okay, thanks. Bye.
Case dismissed.